Now, the Steel and Engineering Industries Federation, which represents businesses in the industry, will update the public on the ongoing wage negotiation deadlock between the union NUMSA and itself. After 10 days of a national strike, SEIFSA put forward a new offer, that's 6%, which was rejected by the union. Our business reporter Kopano Gumbi is in Johannesburg ahead of the briefing. Kopano, a very good morning to you. NUMSA has rejected 6%, but they're saying that they're not completely against the 6%. There must be some conditions that meet them accepting 6%. They speak about how it must be the basis, or it must be based on rates and not minimums. What exactly is that all about?
Good morning, Paul. Absolutely. Just 10 days ago, we were standing here when thousands of workers and members of NUMSA gathered to hand over a memorandum of understanding to many of the unions that are represented in their steel, or the labor unions and the employer unions that were represented in their steel sector. They're saying to us they want 6%. Coming down from 15% when the negotiations started, then moving down to 8%, now saying they would be open to a 6% increase if that was based on the actual rate of pay of workers and not based on a minimum base as has been put forward by SEIFSA and other organizations. Now today we expect to hear from SEIFSA why they think that the 6% offer they've put forward is the best offer. As we've mentioned, 10 days now that the strike has been going on. This is the second longest strike in this sector since 2014. When they first striked in 2014, that strike lasted about 2 weeks, and by industry estimates, it cost the entire economy about 6 billion rand. Now SEIFSA saying these last 10 days have cost them 100 million in lost wages and up to 5 times more in productivity, which is around 500 million in 10 days lost in productivity, which the economy can ill afford. But workers, I think NUMSA have been very clear that they too do not want the strike to continue indefinitely, but that they would keep their position, hold their ground until such a point that they find something amicable, and that is the 6% on actual salaries as suggested. And we wait to hear from SEIFSA why they think that's not possible, why the steel industry cannot afford that, although some in the sector have seen record high prices because of iron ore, because of steel, and the increase in demand since the pandemic has eased in most of the global markets and demand has picked up again. We're finding that steel prices have been significantly higher, and demand for iron ore and steel, which is a lot of what the NUMSA members are, industries that they work in and places that they mine from, why that demand has not translated yet into workers' salaries and workers' wages in Paul.
With that translation, NUMSA has also spoken about their analysis over the decades when they come to assessing the wages and salaries of workers, saying that they have not been on an increase. Instead, it's been a decrease over the decades.
Absolutely. So the idea that NUMSA have put forward in that regard is that over the last 10 years, the entire sector, the steel and engineering sector, has shrunk, and as a result their wages have shrunk with the size of the sector. Now we know that when COVID-19 first came in, they decided to take a pause on salary increases and said to the industry, we fully understand what is going on and therefore we will not ask for a salary increase this year. But now they're saying, well, we've come out of the pandemic, we've seen the results that have come from many of these publicly listed companies, and now we're saying, can we come back to the table to negotiate a living wage for our members when we look at what's happened throughout the economy and the sector, with increases in food pricing, with increases in fuel, above inflation increases on both of those things, which are really basics. The NUMSA are now saying, no, they really would like to see more of an increase in their salaries. And so this is where we are, this is where we find ourselves. They have been negotiating since May of this year, or rather June of this year, they have been negotiating for salaries increases in this sector. Now we find ourselves here in October, 10 days of a strike. leading towards as long a strike as was last seen in 2014. And we wait to hear from SEIFSA themselves to say, well, how do they plan to take this forward? Because the ball is now in their court.
Absolutely. Let's leave it there for now. Kopano Gumbi out in Johannesburg giving us some of the problem areas ahead of SEIFSA briefing the media this morning. They're saying that since the strike action began, they've lost out, workers have lost out on 100 million rand in wages. Of course, we'll wait to hear from them when it comes to the way forward on these wage negotiations.